This is Jordan Tower with JT News. Make sure you smash that like button, smash that subscribe button. Okay, so this is day 6 of the trial. Then I was saying day 5 in the other video. I don't know why, but day 6. And so we got Dawn Richards. She testified. Cassie's best friend. And we'll just keep it going from there. It's... You know, I saw Gene Deal. He arrived at the courthouse. We're going to see if he testified today. But they definitely, I think they took a break for the day at this point. All right, so U.S. Combs ending at 3. Oh, it ended at 3 p.m. All right, so here we go. Hold on one sec. We'll get right to it. So Diddy. U.S. video Combs now at 3 p.m. Okay, here we go. Alrighty. So, Dawn Richards, I think she completed her testimony and she was cross-examined. And really all this stuff is just... all this stuff is really just breaking down all Cassie stuff and putting it back into it. And we're going to see other girlfriends eventually take the stand. And put like Ghana, I think she's going to be taking the stand. That's the Asian girl, and we'll go from there. But all right, so jury went for lunch. Citation evidence, AUSA. So let's go here. Did Mr. Combs ever assault you? Carrie Morgan. This is Cassie's best friend. We picked it up from here. Yes, he hit me with a wood coat hanger and he choked me behind me, right ear, and. They says, who did you speak to about it? She said, Ryan, Sean's old assistant. What did he do? Nothing. Yeah, everyone around, D-Rock, everybody did nothing, right? So then they submitted some photos and everything, and they put more evidence in. The Diddy's lawyers say they didn't see some things before. They went for a brief lunch, and then they argued between the government and the judge that, Cassie could be called in for this new evidence, because they could cross-examine her on Combs' side, and then they just decided to throw it out. All right, so then they were trying to put more witnesses on now that says, as a means of methods at Bad Boy, just under Diddy's ruling, he would threaten to assault employees. So they want to establish this pattern that Diddy had a God complex, pretty much, and that he used to threaten people with everything. So let's see. Jury enters, no further questions. The judge cross. Now, so that means Diddy's lawyers come in and they cross Carrie. So they says, you're with Miss Ventura's best friend since 2004, right? You were Cassie's best friend since 2004. She said, actually 2001. We met waiting for Polaroids to develop. I was living in Buffalo. She was in Connecticut. He says, then you were both in New York City. She says, I stayed downtown. She moved to Harlem. And then she said, have you ever met Kim Porter? She says, yes, probably at a concert. Then they say, was Cassie ever jealous? Morgan says, yeah, she was. Then Combs' lawyer says, and the other way, Carrie says, Cassie was speaking with Michael B. Jordan and Sean got jealous and she was trying to leave him. He says, were you both using drugs? She says, no, we were in South Africa. Then she says, when did you learn about Gina? She says, yes, I did learn about Gina. And then she says, he was having a full-on relationship with this little girl. Then they says, why do you call her that? And he says, she acts like that. She's younger than us. And then they say, when you say Sean came and hammered on the door, why didn't the police come? She says, they said because of the noise, the police come. Oh, so why did the police come? They said because of the noise. And what did they say to you? Cassie was visibly injured, but she didn't say anything. Then it says, you two were best friends for 18 years, but now you haven't spoken to her since 2018. Carrie said, yeah, that's true. It says, at the danger of being capital obvious. That's a long time. She's moved on. They objected. The government objected. They says, why haven't you spoken to her? Carrie says, she did not support me after Sean assaulted me. I tried. That's a line at assault. You know, like, we would, if you don't got my back during that, we can't be friends. Then they ask, Combs says, did you know if Louis Hayes is a self-help author about self-affirmation? She says, yes. Why did you speak to him with words of encouragement? I don't remember sending it. They said, okay. Then they says, I want to show you a few more photos, but first let's talk about the incident when he put hands on your neck. Were you and Cassie using any drugs at the time? She says, no. Then he says, what did he say? He said, who is she cheating with? It says, you went to an urgent care and not a hospital. They said, right. But don't the prosecutor, it was bloody and you went up to the hospital. She said, I don't remember that. Okay, so it says, look, there was a 3,500 material not shown to jury. Carrie says, I see that I said that. Huh. But you don't. The prosecutors, it was bloody and you went to the hospital. Okay. So they're trying to prove her they're trying to say she's a liar? I don't over not remembering something that happened a long time. So then the government says, do you remember? Then the government comes back in and they say, do you remember Mr. Angolfino asking you about the incident in L.A.? Then Combs says objection. Combs' lawyer says objection, overruled. And he says, after he hit her, like in Jamaica, arguing about jealousy, what happened in Jamaica? Carrie says, he dragged Cassie by her hair a 50-yard hallway. Was he talking about jealousy? No, he said she spent too long in the bathroom. Nothing further. Judge, any cross? Then the Combs lawyer says, now, next witness. I said no. And this is next witness is David James. Government says, why are you here? David James says, I've been subpoenaed. Government says, were you Combs' personal assistant? David James says, from 2007 to 2009. AUSA, who is that in the photo? David James says, this is David James. Government says, this is yourself? He says, yes. He says, then David says, I went to college in Michigan, later faxed my resume to Bad Boy. And then government says, was there an interview? David says, 1710 Broadway. Who'd you meet? Tommy, his sister Keisha, and others. Government, how did they test you? David says, they gave me 40 appointments and asked me to make a schedule. You had to know, for example, what particular show on Hot 97 came on. Okay. It says, did Mr. Combs ask you? It says, to make a to make a spreadsheet for Miami. I said I'd know his food and restaurant preferences. He asked me why I'd make a good assistant. I said, can't stop, won't stop. I got the job. Government, did he have others? David says, Miss Robies, Mr. Barber, and others. Government, what would you do as an assistant? David James says, Bad Boy to 5, then out to dinner, then studio till 3 a.m. We'd get a call time at the end of the night. Did you travel with Mr. Combs? He says, yes. Were you, who were the security staff? He says, D-Rock, Bonds, and Uncle Paulie. You work 20 hours a day? He said, yes, security did too. What did security staff tell you? They said, to stay in my lane. Government, who said that? He says, Bond and Uncle Paulie. Government says, focusing on his personal chef. Who is this? He says, Chef Jordan and Jordan Atkinson. He says, did Mr. Combs have girlfriends then? He says, Kim Porter, Sarah, Tara, Yana, and Cassie. Who was your first conversation? What was your first conversation with Cassie? He says, we were on Star Island. Carrie Morgan was there too. Cassie said, this lifestyle is crazy. David James says, I asked her, why don't you leave? She says, Sean controls my life, my music. He pays for my apartment. Government, next conversation. He says, it was about her music, but her album never came out. Did you overhear the conversation? They ask. He says, yes. Mr. Combs said, Kim is my queen out in L.A. with family. He said, I have Cassie right where I want her. She's young and moldable. Your Honor, how much longer do you want to go? This would be a good place to break. Judge, we'll break for the day. That was it? Oh, and there's more. Wait. Combs, MDC, Brooklyn makes... okay, so we need more. Ending at 3 p.m. helps if you can extend it. Put a letter in the docket. Yes, do. Okay, so... MDC Brooklyn makes us and VCT calls at 6 p.m. We need more. Okay, so they want to... They want to have more time to talk with their client, Diddy. And so they put in a letter saying, they want more time on the phone, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so that's cool. And the judge makes that call. And that's it. That's all, folks. That's day 6 in the books. We're just going to get a lot of little things backing. It's all centered around Cassie, right? So Cassie is this case. If Diddy had settled with Cassie early, when he first got those pages, a lot of this might have never happened. That and trying to do another album and that producer, that creator problem. Producer, Diddy, what's his name? Oh, what's his name again? Little Rodney. Yeah, Roddy Jones. Little Rod. Imagine if like Little Rod was never, this would have just gone on forever. He could have paid Cassie. I'm not saying that this shouldn't have happened, but I'm just saying this is what happened. I mean, is Diddy the type to settle? No. Damn, Diddy. Anyways, this is Jordan Tower with JT News. I'll check you guys in the next one. Smash that like button. Peace.